In 1947, the subcontinent of Asia was divided into two parts. One part today is the world's largest democracy, a vibrant economy, one of the world's largest middle classes. The other part is Pakistan.
Yeah.
What happened? Nick, I mean, have you thought about this? Why did is it reversible? And how did this come to pass that these two places that are so alike, obviously, in so many ways, what happened?
And so different.
And so different.
In their founding fathers, Muhammad Ali Jinnah or Nehru. I won't go through the history of South Asia in a minute.
Could you?
I won't, but I'll spare you. But I'd like to just, one more
That's a special
point.
lunch session we're going to do.
Here's the problem for us. If we engage in name-calling against Pakistan, and if we effectively decide to walk away from the relationship, we hurt ourselves in two respects. On the margins, although they've not been a faithful, unstinting partner on counterterrorism, they still do have troops on the Afghan-Pakistan border, which is where most of our terrorist opponents are. We still need them in that fight. Secondly, and more importantly, there's going to be a very messy drawdown in Afghanistan. And we're going to have to try to leave and not have the country completely splinter and maybe collapse in the process. Like it or not, Pakistan's going to write part of that history. It's going to be a major actor in the negotiations with the Taliban. And so Richard's right, they're not our friend, they're not our partner. We ought not to be giving them billions every year, but we need to retain some influence and some interest there. To go to your question, obviously the rise of India as the world's largest democracy, strategic partner of the United States, like-minded on how to handle China, like-minded on how to handle Afghanistan, this is a major preoccupation for us. And I've been, in the last couple of days at Aspen, trying to stress the point that sometimes in foreign policy, we see more integration between Republicans and Democrats than differences. Here you have a case in India where President Clinton opened the door to a big relationship, President Bush built that relationship, and President Obama has maintained it. So you have bipartisan consensus. It's not an alliance. India is not going to be a treaty ally. The United States is too big, it's too proud, but the Indians see their strategic interests in coincidence with ours. That's a good thing. And the tricky balance for President...
You asked a different question. You asked us why has it not worked?
And I'm just answering as usual.
Are you getting to it?
As
He's
usual.
Gonna defend you, Richard.
I've been doing a lot of
defend
listening here, Richard, you know.
I like
Nick's
it when they
making a
fight.
really good
I like it when
point.
they fight over procedural issues.
As,
This is good.
We're diplomats.
Yeah.
We're diplomatic.
We're diplomatic.
The tricky thing here is there is still an India-Pakistan balance that we have to be mindful of in our own relationship. And if we try to insert India as our major partner in Afghanistan, there's going to be a Pakistani reaction. So we have to be mindful of the Pakistanis from there. Pakistan's a failed state. India is very successful. What else can we say?
Can you go to that?
Building on what Nick was saying, I would say a few things. I think the definition of Pakistan from the get-go as a state whose identity was based upon religion set the stage for certain problems, particularly when it was built upon a society that had very powerful families, in some ways a feudal society where you had very few of the institutions that we would think of as pre-democratic, plus very, very powerful geographic and tribal splits. So it was very hard to build national identity. Against that backdrop, among other things, the army became the most powerful institution in the country. So you just didn't have a lot of the prerequisites of democratic progression. And quite honestly, I don't see it coming. You know, a friend of mine, actually, was Al Carnesale, when he was dean at the Kennedy School and went on to run Harvard. He used to have 3 boxes on his desk: in, out, and too hard. And to some extent, Pakistan is in the too hard box. If your goal is that you think somehow you're going to turn it into a flourishing, liberal democracy, market-oriented country that's going to act responsibly in its national security, ain't going to happen. So that sometimes in foreign policy, your goal is to bring about wonderful outcomes. This is not one of them. Here, the U.S. goal is to try to somehow prevent or forestall awful outcomes. And even that may not sound like it's ambitious, but in this case, that is mighty ambitious.